We've seen something very unusual happen in this country in the last 10, 15 days. And it would only be appropriate that we begin by acknowledging what we have witnessed. What is the significance of this incident of Hyderabad, which has caught national attention after a long, long time? Something to do with caste, injustice has caught national attention. Later on we can analyze what exactly was it in this incident that made it catch attention. But let's simply notice what does this signify? First of all, of course, it needn't be repeated, that this incident reminds us of the fact of caste injustice, which is so deeply lodged inside our modern institutions. In ways, it's inscribed invisibly in our modern institutions. At the same time, this incident also reminds us of the resistance that is building up. As in the case of caste atrocity, we all know that most of the cases of caste atrocities that are reported are not necessarily from those areas or sections or domains where caste atrocity is at its worst. It comes from those areas where resistance has begun. In fact, from the worst areas or domains of caste oppression, there is almost never any reporting, because it takes something for these things to become reportable. Hyderabad University, as we know, is a very unusually vibrant university, and in one way I actually felt bad that this one of the finer universities of the country, finer because this university has greater consciousness, the student community of this university has greater consciousness on questions of caste injustice than most universities of this country. This most visible case happens to come from that very university. But if we now see the logic of it, we should not be surprised that the reporting comes from places where resistance has actually begun. This incident reminds us of a certain reduction that we witness. If you notice, in Rohit's case, there was that little dispute about whether he's really an SC or not. Initially, of course, people gloss over the fact that it's not your certificate that you carry in your pocket or your file that matters. What matters is what you think you are and what everyone else thinks you are. That's what matters in this case. But interestingly, the assumption was that if your certificate happens to be not SC, but OBC or EBC, then any claim about caste injustice is a bogus claim. So the government representatives go about presenting the case as if the whole thing hinges on either producing an SC certificate or not producing it. Which is to say, the entire question of caste injustice is reduced to one formal boundary. Anything just outside that boundary is not quite caste injustice. I'll have something to say about this later. We also see in this very incident a pattern that's actually a very standard pattern. Initial denial followed by appropriation. Denial that anything happened at all, and later on, no less the Prime Minister of this country deeply regretting the fact that this country had lost this son, great son. Both things happen simultaneously. In fact, they happen in a sequence, but later on you actually see both of them operating at the same time. So denial come appropriation, or denial followed by appropriation. And would it go, we don't know, it's too soon for us to say. We have seen some things like this happen earlier too. Denial, appropriation, followed by amnesia, as if it never happened. This is a danger that we still face. It's too early to pronounce a judgment, and certainly I would not wish to jump to a sad judgment. But let us not forget that when all this attention is being paid to this question of caste, that is also the moment when no less than the Speaker of Lok Sabha has opinions about reservations being reconsidered. And in their vocabulary, reconsidered doesn't mean retuned or fine-tuned. It actually means jumped. So this is a very delicate moment at which we speak. I would wish to argue that what we see in this incident, and if indeed it is denial, appropriation, amnesia pattern, which is what we have seen in the past, it reflects something of the failure of politics of social justice. Now that might sound like an odd claim. Odd because in some ways, politics of social justice has succeeded like nothing else has. Began in heartland of South in the 60s, and by 90s, 80s and 90s, it is very much something that has captured the heartland of North India as well. Parties ostensibly claiming to be parties of social justice are in power almost everywhere. Or parties that do not call themselves parties of social justice have to include that dimension within their parties. So Madhya Pradesh has to have an OBC chief minister, even if they don't have an SP-BSP kind of a party. BJP has to become that kind of a party. And not to forget the fact that our Prime Minister, one of the attributes that he has claimed for himself is that he is from an OBC. So in one sense, one could say that politics of OBC, especially OBC politics, has succeeded like very few things have succeeded in this country. The only states which are now outside the purview of rise of OBC politics could be Orissa, Bengal, and on that side maybe Rajasthan, Punjab. Most other states are very much, in a sense, part of that victory of OBC politics. You could also say that if there is one subject on which everyone in Parliament is scared to say anything, it is something to do with SC/ST. In some very limited sense, this is the new sacred cow of Indian politics. SC/ST Atrocities Act passed without any discussion. Extension of reservation without any discussion. So someone could say that it is inappropriate to speak about failure of politics of social justice because it has actually succeeded in a big way. I would argue that actually politics of social justice has reached something of a dead end. Professor Gopal Krishna Gandhi said something about